A lunatic serial killer gets hired to find the man who stole the cartel's money. Today, we will be recapping the 2007 crime drama movie No Country for Old Men, where the lines between good and evil get blurred when a man gets lucky and finds $2 million. The movie begins with a sheriff reflecting on the differences between past and present law enforcement, highlighting not only the rise in crime, but the rise in intensity of crime as well. Meanwhile, a hitman named Anton Chigurh is arrested in the Texas desert and taken to the deputy sheriff's office, who calls the head sheriff to shift Chigurh to the main prison. But Chigurh strangles the sheriff using his handcuffs, then takes the sheriff's car and heads on to the highway. He stops a random driver, kills him with a unique tool used to kill animals quickly by damaging the brain tissues, and escapes in his car. In another place, a man named Llewelyn Moss is hunting in the Texas desert when he discovers the aftermath of a failed drug deal. He finds corpses of men and dogs all shot to death. He tries to look for survivors and finds a severely wounded man pleading for water. Moss tells him he doesn't have any water with him before nonchalantly stealing his gun and weapons. He goes on checking the cart ranks and finds a stash of drugs. He starts looking for the money involved in the deal. He follows a trail to a man under a tree, finding him dead but having a briefcase containing $2 million. He takes the money and heads home. However, when his wife, Carla Jean, asks him about his absence the whole day, he avoids answering. At night, while trying to sleep, Moss is overwhelmed by the guilt of not helping the injured person in the car and returns to the scene with water to help. But that guy is already dead. Suddenly, two men arrive there and spot Moss, prompting him to flee while they try to shoot him. He leaps off a cliff into a river to escape. They send a dog to catch him, but Moss shoots him dead. Meanwhile, Chigurh stops at a quiet gas station. When Chigurh goes to the counter to pay, the owner starts a casual conversation. But Chigurh does not like it. Chigurh's cold and eerie appearance makes the owner a bit terrified. He tells Chigurh that they are closing when it is not time for closing. Chigurh demands the exact time they close normally, and then Chigurh points out to the house nearby, implying he knows where the owner lives and can't run even if he closes the shop early. Chigurh flips a coin and asks the owner to call aside. Owner's expression is between fear and confusion. He does not want to call. Chigurh insists and explains that the right call could save his life. So he just calls it the head. It is indeed heads. His right call spares saves him. Upon reaching home, Moss tells Carla to pack her bags and stay with her mother. She asks why, and he tells her that the money that they have will lead to people coming to their home by the morning searching for it. So they must pack quickly and leave. The same night, Chigurh is hired to find the cash. His employers take him to the crime scene and give him the device that beeps when near the tracker, which is hidden in the bag. After taking all the information from them, Chigurh shoots both of them. He then observes the crime scene and finds Moss's car, from where he takes the address and goes to his home in the morning. He breaks the lock using an air-powered captive bolt pistol and finds it empty. He searches around and notices a telephone bill and takes it with him. There he finds the phone number they call frequently to. Moss boards Carla on a bus and tells her she can retire from her Walmart job now, as they have then enough money for rest of their life. He tells her he will get in touch with her when he is sure that he is not being chased. He takes a taxi to Del Rio, where he'll be hiding. Early at dawn, the sheriff leaves for work with his wife, telling him to get neither hurt nor hurt anyone else. He reaches work, and the sheriff's department becomes aware of a chaotic situation and locates Moss's car nearby. They proceed to Moss's home, discovering a broken lock, and Sheriff Tom Bell takes charge of the investigation. They find cold milk on the table, meaning they nearly missed the one chasing Moss. Tom believes that Moss is aware of being pursued not only by the police, but by someone very dangerous, as they both have witnessed similar events in life. Moss reaches a motel and books a single room. He opens the vent in the room using a screwdriver, takes a few $100 bills for his use, and conceals a briefcase in an air duct. He then uses a hanger rod to push it to the back so it's invisible to anyone. Using the telephone bill, Chigurh dials the most frequently called number on the telephone bill he had found in Moss's house. This belongs to Carla's mother. He inquires if Moss is at her place, but she replies in negative. He then asks her if she knows where he is, but she denies knowing anything. Going to the market nearby, Moss purchases new shoes and socks and then sits in the bathroom to dress his wounds from escaping the crime site and jumping down the cliff. He takes a taxi back to the hotel and sees another car parked right next to his hotel room. Fearing being caught, he quickly tells the driver to drive him to another motel. The next morning, Weldell, deputy sheriff, brings the sheriff the report from the murder on the highway and informs them that no bullet was found. It was an entry wound at the forehead, but no exit line, and Tom becomes visibly stressed by the information. The next morning, Moss waits outside a gun shop as he plans to buy some weapons for protection against the Mexicans. He purchases a gun and a camping tent, and then returns to the motel. He also obtains the motel's map from the receptionist and reserves another room, which shares a vent with his past room. Using camping tent poles and hanger hooks, he opens the vent. Around evening, Chigurh is passing by the Del Rio motel where Moss is staying, and his tracking device starts to beep loudly, suggesting that the money bag is nearby. He checks into the room adjacent to Moss's, prepares his weapons, and stealthily approaches Moss's room. Chigurh uses an air-powered gun to breach the lock, encountering Mexican assailants. He kills them before meticulously searching the room. On the other side, Moss uses hanger hooks attached to the pole hook into the briefcase's handle and retrieves it. Chigurh suddenly thinks that money might be in an air duct and opens the duct to identify the bag's trail, and the bag is no longer there. Moss quickly gets out and hitchhikes a car, but the driver advises him against hitchhiking due to its risks at night. The group involved in the drug deal engages Mr. Carson Wells, a famous hitman, to locate and deal with Chigurh. They offer him $1,000 for capturing Chigurh or retrieving the money within the next 24 hours, as Chigurh has killed 2 of their men in the desert and 3 in a Del Rio motel. Wells agrees to undertake the task. Moss is transported to a hotel in the border town of Eagle Pass, where he arranges with the receptionist by bribing him to notify him if anyone checks into the hotel during the night. While attempting to rest, Moss suddenly realizes something, prompting him to inspect the bag. He discovers a tracking device and anxiously tries to contact the receptionist, but his calls go unanswered. Moss loads his gun, positions himself facing the door, and turns off his lamp. He quietly waits for the inevitable attack, and abruptly, Chigurh blows apart the door lock, prompting Moss to shoot at the door and throw the briefcase out of a window before leaping out. After getting out, he uses the main door to return to the hotel. He exits through the back door but is shot in the waist by Chigurh, who is still on the upper floors. Moss spots an approaching car and quickly hops in it. Unfortunately, Chigurh shoots the driver, causing the car to crash soon after Moss takes control. Moss exits the car and seeks cover behind another vehicle. Peering through a nearby window, he observes Chigurh advancing toward him. Moss readies his gun and fires at Chigurh, who manages to evade the gunfire and escape the situation. Seeking refuge and being badly injured, Moss travels to Mexico, where he encounters 3 men and pays them $500 for a jacket and beer. He discovers a river bordered by a fence and tosses the briefcase over it. Due to his severe injuries, he faints and is discovered by a busking band the next morning that takes him to a hospital. Meanwhile, Chigurh tends to his wounds in his apartment after stealing medicine from a pharmacy. When Moss regains consciousness, he finds Wells at his side, who reassures him that he isn't the one Moss should fear. Moss reveals that he has seen the man pursuing him, and Wells is surprised that Moss has seen Chigurh and is still alive. He explains that he can offer protection if Moss hands over the money, as Chigurh might be headed to Odessa to harm Carla. Wells tells Moss that Chigurh is a professional hitman and a psychopath, and asks Moss what he used to do before his retirement. Moss tells him he was a welder and refuses to comply and have a deal with Wells. Wells gives Moss his contact information, urging him to call if he wants to survive. But Moss is too up in his head, thinking nothing can hurt him, and he will keep the money. On the other side, Sheriff Tom meets Carla, who informs him that Moss hasn't contacted her. Tom advises her that even though a person may be skilled in a competition, nothing is guaranteed. He tells Carla about how one of his friends had a slaughterhouse and got irreparably injured during a fight, emphasizing that nothing is certain in the world. He tells her that now they kill animals differently, as they use an air gun that shoots a little rod into the animal's brain and comes right back in. The animal doesn't even know what hit it and is dead. He asks her to convey his message to Moss that he is willing to protect him. At the hotel, Wells encounters Chigurh, who is waiting for him by the stairs. Walking up to Wells' room, he proposes a deal to get him the money in exchange for his release, but Chigurh dismisses the offer, emphasizing the inevitability of fate, and ultimately kills Wells. Moss telephones Wells, intending to make a deal with him, but Chigurh answers the call instead and vows to kill Carla Jean unless Moss gives up the money. Moss gets out of the hospital, buys clothes, retrieves the money, and instructs Carla to meet him at the El Paso motel. Unfortunately, Carla's mother gets tricked and reveals Moss's whereabouts to the Mexicans following Moss. Carla utilizes a payphone to inform Sheriff Tom about the location, hoping he can help Moss. Upon Tom's arrival, he discovers Moss's lifeless body in a restroom and instructs bystanders to contact the police. When Carla arrives at the scene and catches a glimpse of Tom, she instantly understands that Moss has passed away, prompting her to burst into tears. Tom is approached by another senior sheriff who remarks on the current state of the world, where drugs and money seem to hold ultimate importance. He reflects on how people are now willing to sacrifice their lives for them. If someone had told him this was the future of Texas 2 decades ago, he would have found it hard to believe. Later, Tom revisits the crime scene to examine it again. However, he notices that the door lock is broken, using an air-powered gun. He swiftly enters the room and searches it thoroughly, but unfortunately, he can't find Chigurh hiding in the same room. The following morning, Sheriff Tom visits his Uncle Ellis. Ellis informs Tom that his wife frequently sends him letters and keeps him updated on the news. She mentioned that Tom has retired, and Tom confides in Ellis, admitting that he feels overwhelmed. Ellis shares a story about a lawman from their family, Tom's great-uncle, who was killed on his porch. He reminds Tom that the region has always been marked by violence, suggesting it's vanity to think he is responsible for everything. Weeks pass, and Carla returns from her mother's funeral to find Chigurh waiting in her bedroom. She tells him she doesn't even have enough money to pay her bills. Chigurh explains that her husband had a chance to save her, which he didn't take, and she has no alternatives. He produces his coin and proposes a toss, offering her a choice between heads and tails for her life. Carla rejects this proposition, asserting that Chigurh can't shift the responsibility to luck, it's his decision. He kills her and checks his boots for blood before leaving. While driving through the neighborhood, Chigurh is suddenly involved in a car crash at an intersection. Despite being badly injured, he survives. 2 children cycling nearby come to his aid. One lends him a shirt, which he uses as a makeshift cast for his injured arm. Chigurh hands them a $100 bill, warning them not to tell anyone about his presence at the crime scene. By the time the ambulance and police reach the accident spot, he is already gone. Sheriff Tom, now retired, struggles to fill his days with meaningful activities. His wife inquires about his sleep, prompting him to share his dreams. He says he had 2 dreams. In the first one, his father gave him a lot of money, only for him to lose it later. In the second dream, he and his father journeyed on horseback through a snow-covered mountain pass. His father proceeded ahead, kindling a fire in the darkness and waiting for Tom to arrive. Let's interpret the ending scene and what it could possibly mean. The first dream suggests that his father handed him the sheriff position so he could take care of law and order, but he failed in doing so, as he couldn't protect Moss or catch Anton Chigurh. It can also suggest that the money was destined to be lost in the end. No one truly possessed it, and those who pursued it met their demise, restarting the cycle. The money appears fleeting, never truly belonging to anyone due to the insatiable greed that doesn't bring happiness to anyone involved. The second dream symbolizes Bel's struggle to come to terms with the fact that the world is not as simple or as safe as he thought it was, and that there is a darkness that he cannot understand or control. The same idea is presented in the movie's title.